This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For April 28, 2023, it's the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. Welcome back, everybody. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends.
Hello.
This is the 17th show of the week.
I feel like we just
feels
this.
Like that.
Yeah, right.
We were just here.
An hour ago.
Turn that one around very quickly. So another show out there for you to listen to.
They have no idea what they're talking about. They're just like, what?
No.
They don't know. My name's Chris Dector. I'm joined today by Jamie, Mark, Larry, Justin, and special guest Atkins Fleming from Texas State University. Welcome, Atkins.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Atkins took us up on the challenge of how many emails can he write to us.
Yeah, he's leading right now. Everybody who has not got one in yet, Atkins is winning, just so you know.
He's also in second place.
We
First
figured,
and second place.
no, there's quite a few, actually. You guys don't clear through the mailbag. I dig through the mailbag.
Point's still valid.
But we figured instead of reading another one of his letters, we'd bring him on and he can read it, or he could at least describe it. So, but before we get to that, on today's show, we're going to discuss the changing tools and skills necessary for AV support. Jamie's going to give us the high points of all the news from NAB.
Tons of it.
There's tons of it. But first, and we don't have any AV news. Instead, we have Atkins news. So Atkins is here to read us our letter from the mailbag. You wrote in the other day to describe a new possible solution. So I'll just hand it off. What the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, well, I was attending a webinar, like many of us do on frequent occurrence.
I'm on 2 right now.
Yeah. And this one happened to be hosted on, can I say the platform? Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah.
As long as it's not WebEx. We don't say the word WebEx.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah, okay. So don't say WebEx. Okay.
3 times. It's already been 3 times we said it.
All right. So this webinar was hosted on 24, which is similar to, I know there's other platforms out there like this that I've been on. I can't think of all the names. The other one that's most familiar to me would be the one that Rave kind of built and uses for their AV launch platform. But anyways, I'm sitting there listening to the webinar. I got kind of bored, as can happen. And I started playing with the interface, and it's a browser-based platform. It gives you a bunch of free-form windows inside your browser that you can drag around and scale. And so I started clicking around, seeing what the options were. So obviously there was the video of the people that were on the panel, so we could see their beautiful faces. There was a live chat section so that you could message, either panelists or everyone in attendance. There was the slide deck that was there. And all of these are kind of, we're used to using these things in our UC platforms like Zoom and Teams. But this platform gave you a better chance to use them at your leisure, I would say. There were also an additional feature that I liked was they had all the speaker bios in another window. So, if I was like, oh, who is that again? I don't remember. I can just look, I see their picture, I click on it, I get their bio. And so I don't know on that platform how much information you could load into that section, but it got me thinking, wouldn't this be an ideal tool or solution for education? Because as the participant or student, I was able to custom tailor my experience to what I wanted. If I wanted to focus on the slides, I could make that little window box bigger. If I wanted to focus on the video of the presenter, I could make that bigger. I had the ability to chat. I could look at materials that were posted there kind of statically outside of what the presenter was, showing at a specific time. And I know digital canvassing is something that's it's a popular term, or maybe it's becoming a newer trend term for us. Perhaps you guys have even talked about that recently.
Weird how that works.
But it got me thinking, like, well, this is essentially digital canvassing. It runs in a browser window. Why not just throw this on a PC in a classroom, load the content into your platform, and you're off and running?
Didn't I just say that like an hour ago or yesterday or 2 days ago?
It was 2 days ago.
Like, hey, why don't we just digital canvas from our computers the way we want to?
Right. But I think you're right. It is the trend, the norm. I don't want to cut you off, but I get the sense that we have this like multi chopped up window canvassing approach, which may and or may not be the best experience on a display at the front of the room. But whenever I hear that kind of piece of it, I always fall back to like, well, let's just get rid of that thing at the front of the room. If everybody's going to be in this PC environment, like, what are we doing? Like, is that? So I go back and forth depending on how I woke up any day about this. And Larry, you're waving your finger, so I know you want to get in on this.
Fingers going.
I am, because I think you've missed the big point about this that Atkins brought up. Like, he was controlling his experience.
Yes.
So this eliminates that screen at the front of the room. Everybody has their laptop.
That's my point. That's exactly the
content is brought in through the LMS, and I agree. Mm-hmm. I can see this being the new version of a digital active learning type space. Now, that being said,
but
would it work for everything and all?
Right.
This, yes. So I'm like, you're right on. This is what we should be delivering to the students who are not in front of your face. Because to use this, they have to have their own machine, right? So putting this up on the in this particular case, this on 24 thing, putting this on a screen on the front of the room, running from the in-room PC, I'm talking to you, Justin, doesn't make sense because they can't click on it. They have to have their own device.
Look, I'm just saying, instead of, if you have to do windowing, instead of buying expensive hardware, just do it over software. I'm not agreeing with the windowing. And
I do really love this for the delivery of content to remote users, because I think this style of delivery method is what's missing from a lot of these LMSs. Now, what would be curious is, how does this get into LMSs? How does it scale up to 14, 15, 40,000 different students, 100,000 different users? How does it scale? What's the costing? But Blackboard, Canvas, all of them, why is this not in your LMS? And why aren't we delivering it this way for anything that's not in person?
We talked about last year. We said that it's only a matter of time until we're going to see that baked into an LMS. And I still hold by that. It's going to come. We're going to see it.
And I'm actually okay with this at the front of the room, too. The instructor can do the same thing the students can do to present the material how they want to, but it still empowers the students. Like, if you're in the back of the room and you just want to focus on the slides, like, you can control your experience in the room while the instructor's presenting it how they want to.
Yeah, it's on demand how you want it to be, not necessarily what's been prescribed to you. I think that's important. In your navigating through their Atkins, did you ever get to a point where you're like, oh shit, I'm going to break this? If I click this, like, what's going to happen? Did you ever feel like you didn't know what was going on, or was it complicated at all?
No, I didn't. The only thing I could see as a potential pitfall is, if you accidentally lose a window in there behind another window, or I think there was the ability to X out of a window, and then, somewhere in the menu you could bring it back. Those would be potential pitfalls. But overall, as long as I didn't accidentally quit my browser, it felt pretty safe. And I also didn't feel like, I didn't have any chance to impact the actual presentation that was happening. So I liked that aspect. I agree with Larry. I thought the same thing. Like, yes, this is ideal for students, especially remote students, but why not have the professor use it too? If they could bring in multiple content streams and resize them as needed, and if they could put the chat up there on the front of room screen, great. In my email to you all, I'd also mentioned, like, let's just bring in a USB doc cam as a source into this software, and now we've covered that base as well. I don't need any sort of video switching at that point.
Yeah, I think we've had that radical concept that the only thing that's really needed in a room is probably just a PC. And how does that change our infrastructure view, right? If we do see some magical leader of the pack in AV over IP that is native on a card or a PC, and everything's functionally getting to that and sourcing from that within the space and throughout the world, does that change how we look at our spaces design?
Even if it's not AV over IP, even if you go baseband video and you're just putting a USB encoder behind that, and just like with the USB dock cam that Atkins mentioned, you bring it in as another content source I can display wherever I want.
Just directly from my display, no switching downstream.
Right, no, I get that. I'm just saying you can do that now with a little widget. But
yeah, but I mean, does that
the concept is still valid that there would be a single interface? I just have the computer screen, which everybody is familiar with a computer in broad concept. We would have to put some rails around how that stuff looks and how you would arrange it, because someone will do something crazy and wedge all the stuff into tiny little boxes in the corner and just show their giant head in the middle of the screen. But the concept is valid. I don't see any reason why something like this, built appropriately and with the right parameters around it, wouldn't work to functionally replace darn near everything we have in a standard classroom or a hybrid space. Especially if it does. What I really like about this concept is something that it ISOs all the content streams. So as a participant, a viewer, a watcher, a student, I can then manipulate those. And we see that with the open capture standard and things, where I'm going to change, I'm looking at the content stream, the person, the video, whatever it is. But the fact that it isolates those streams so that I can then select and lay things out what makes the most sense to me and my learning style and my workflow. I like that.
I think it's cool. I do think we're going to lose that battle of constricting people to have appropriate sized windows in a space. We're not going to win that war. It's not going to happen.
We already lost it.
Yeah, we're going to lose it. It's gone. Like
PowerPoint. When PowerPoint got invented, we lost it.
Like, that doesn't mean design your spaces wrong and put tiny displays at the front of the room because you feel like a really wacky aspect ratio is the answer. But I don't think we're going to govern people's layouts on their windowing. I like to look at the other side of that and say, I think this is a maturity thing that clients at large are becoming more comfortable with windowing, and they will take advantage of real estate wherever they possibly can.
I think if you train the trainer correctly, just like a driver and a driver's license, if it's, you drive a car and if you have 50 wrecks, you're going to go to jail. So stop using windowing. Right? I mean, there's like consequence to windowing. Like,
I'm still trying to connect your analogy here.
Right? The analogy.
You're telling me they're going to lock up professors for not having correct image size in a room?
When I put peanut butter on spaghetti,
it
doesn't.
Lock them up.
I'm not teaching it.
These are the people that
proper
go
training,
full screen all the time.
That's my point. Is
Atkins,
the proper training
in this platform? Was there a button that said, "Make this content fill the entire content stream"? No. Regardless of it looking correct or not, just make it fill the whole darn thing. Full screen it.
Well, from my end as a participant, there was the ability to like full screen or maximize one of those little windows. Now, I didn't see the presenter side. I don't know if they could do that for everyone. That would be a cool feature.
That would be very cool.
But to your point, I would definitely rather window in software than in hardware.
Yes.
Because if you window in hardware, you're still locked into those defined sizes and layouts. So then you are making poor choices for other people that they're locked into. Whereas if you allow them to make a poor choice for themselves, they can
educate people.
They can revert that choice.
Then they write angry letters to the team.
When the student at the back says, "Hey, I can't see that," they can easily just make it bigger, as opposed to you having to go back in and reconfigure the system.
They'll get right on that too.
Even if we have to have get Microsoft out of our own way, because we can only PowerPoint present in full screen mode. You can't do it in a window.
You can do it in windowed mode.
I think
that's what Keynote is for.
Yeah, everybody does their Zoom and they slide that little window over to minimize the heads or whatever. So I think we're becoming more accustomed to this, and I think we are training ourselves in becoming more, just fluent in manipulating this real estate that we've been stuck within for the last umpteen years now. And so I think this is just it tiptoeing in that direction, where people want to create their own experience. And I think anything we do that allows that is the right direction.
Yes. And I think putting the power in the hands of the actual learner is the key.
Yep, I agree.
So here's what was surprising to me. After I kind of had this revelation and poked around, I went to their website and, was clicking through. They have a tab for their industries, and there's like 6 or 7 things listed. They have a tab for use cases. And I was like, where is education in here? I feel like all these companies are making these platforms, but to what someone said earlier, if it was integrated into the LMS, to me, that would be a no-brainer, right? But right now, it's a bunch of disparate services that have subscription costs, and you have to learn how to use them. You have to have an account. You have to do all these things. But we could just take that technology footprint that someone's already developed, merge that into an LMS and problem solved.
So what we hope is we hope they have a booth on the back line of Infocom and during like acquisition row back there, and maybe somebody comes through and scoops them up.
Educause,
we should keep our eyes open.
Or Educause. But I don't think a lot of people are walking with big checkbooks at Educause though, but maybe.
Sure.
Cool. I try to.
Well, everybody but
you have a novelty checkbook, James.
Like large in size?
Yes, physically large.
Yes.
All my checks are novelty checkbooks.
Dang it. Sorry.
Well, awesome. And I've already forgot. What was the company called again? So
Yeah, it was called On24, ON24.
Okay. Cool. I'll check it out.
Terrible. Yeah. Should be called Flexo Content or something better.
I don't know what.
Need some better branding. All right. Well, Microsoft will buy them. They'll roll into the Teams and somehow make it worse.
Oh,
Slack.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm going to push a button. We'll dump out of this. We'll come back. We're going to talk about some remote support options and changing tools for remotes for general support. Push button. I'll push this one.
There's a great new digital magazine from Higher Ed AV Media found at higheredav.com, and we do a special monthly show where we actually stay on topic. It's a show where we try to really focus on a single topic and break it down into AV SuperFriends style. That's AV SuperFriends on topic, found at avsuperfriends.com, higheredav.com, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. We're
Everyone
pulling up
loves
the
Justin
classics.
saying on topic.
On topic, right?
I was really concentrating when I was saying that.
You sure were.
It's like you forgot the name of the show halfway.
I was like, on
crap. What is
topic?
It's potatoes.
It's kind of like when you get pulled over after a night out. A, B, C.
All right. So for our first segment here, we want to talk about the changing support landscape. Mark, I think you raised this one a few weeks ago, and we've been batting it around from the standpoint of we all have support teams we worked with, and over the last, how long we've been doing digital stuff over transport, last 10 years or so, we've built a pretty robust set of tools and skills necessary for identifying issues, troubleshooting, figuring out where things are causing issues, all that stuff.
Yeah.
As we move from baseband to broadband with IP, more IP content distribution, that's an entirely different set of tools to troubleshoot that. I can't just open my same my same software and look at it and say, well, it's got a green line going here, thus it's done.
Right.
So what are we seeing as far as those skill sets, the training, the knowledge, and then the actual hardware and software we need to leverage now? Basically, day to day, we need to be lightweight network admins.
Well, I think it does start at having a really good conversation with your staff, because I'm like guilty of this. I've deployed and designed a whole lot of new AV over IP midst of all the supply chain
tell
crap.
a single person,
right? And then like I just assumed we all agreed that this was the direction we were going, and have done a whole bunch of new deployment. And now it's like we get a call from a room, and a lot of the staff are like, I don't know, talk to Mark about that room. I'm like, what?
That's every day.
So I'm like, clearly I've made a fatal assumption in here, is that the group that was really well trained and up to speed on like baseband workflows, mixers, switchers, all that kind of stuff that we typically would see DSPs, they're rock solid, all those individual pieces. The moment we kind of flatten this thing out and go distributed architecture through AV over IP, it changes like understanding signal. I mean, fundamentally to me, it doesn't change signal flow, but
it doesn't.
I know that, but to the common person, when you have like a basic,
it does
basic room when you're used to go to one
network
tool.
mystery, Justin. It's
Right.
on the. I don't know. It's on the network.
It does. So it seems they default to I don't know because that seems to be above and beyond my typical skill set. And
I don't know.
I think you're an edge case.
Exactly. I like that.
I think you're an edge case, Justin. So, and this is me just trying to be really
You
empathetic.
can't even figure out the AV over IP in your office.
Right, your home network, right? But
I'm using it right now to see you bitches.
How many times did you join the call?
right.
Good gracious.
No, but so simple things, right? Let's take a simple scenario. Oh, I'm in a room. I turn the system on. I don't see my computer, right?
Call support.
Right. So they're on the phone.
Call Mark.
Technician, like how you go about doing that call Mark, in an AV over IP environment is not the same as you would go, I'm just going to pull a tool off the shelf like a DMPS tool, right? It's going to look different. And so they would see all their inputs, their switching, and then they see their outputs all in one piece. AV over IP, it's much more granular than that, right? So they have to be really intentional about those workflows, and it becomes more of web navigation core, right? That skill set of being really fluent in just typical web page and web tool navigation that I just totally took it for granted. Like they just,
I don't know.
again,
See, here's my argument to this.
Go ahead. Jump in.
All right.
Let's hear it.
So our staff has been complaining at me for these AV things having web pages on them for the past 3 years, and how Crestron's going away from it, and all these other manufacturers are going all web-based. And we start talking about AV over IP. I explain what it is. We spend literally 30 minutes on it. And I went through that was just the engineering team. They picked it up. We're programming it. Everybody's really good at what's going on. No problem. Get to the support team, show them like, oh, network switch. So they had big wide eyes at first.
Right.
I spent an hour to 2 hours. I said, look, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. This is how you fix it and troubleshoot it. And now the next activity we're going to do, we're actually going to build a system with the support staff who never build systems. They have to fix things. They're like, this is so easy. I cannot believe we haven't done this sooner. But remember, my support staff were traditional IT folks trying to learn AV. The engineering team we have is very adept at networking. So our skill set made it easy for us. It was just shocking for me to hear that.
I think you're actually making my point for me, Justin.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked though that you had such a hard time on your end.
I'm not having a hard
with
time.
this.
It's just something that I overlooked. I thought it would be more of a natural linear progression, and it hasn't.
So
been.
it's not a problem now?
It's not a problem. It's just it's an awareness that I didn't track as I deployed these new types of systems and whole new architecture. And that I assumed that everybody kind of just knew this was going on in AV over IP and we were moving to this world, and they would kind of jump in and get it. But it didn't happen, and I feel guilty for not providing that path to success for them, right? And so, go ahead, Jamie.
Well, I am in the same struggle. Is that I started pushing things out there, configuring it, and thinking I'll come back later and catch them up. What the struggle is yes, when you start configuring and you go to the website, you put in the IP addresses, whatever. What starts blowing their minds is that this mystery black box now will send the video someplace else, the audio someplace else, the control someplace else, and it's one cable. And so what happens when just the audio doesn't go? Well, the video's here and it turned on, but I don't hear anything. So what tools do they have where they can start tracking down and saying, in a DSP, even if we used all bi-amp with AVB, they're like, well, when the parlay mics went bad, I just unplugged the parlay mics and plugged them back in, and I looked in the thing and it said they were there.
Right.
And so they're just trying to wrap that head around of that. Once it hits this mystery switch, how does it break apart? How do I troubleshoot that? What tools do I need to reroute things independently? It's just enough of a twist. It's easy. It's simple. Once you plug it in the switch and it's all configured, yippee, it goes. And when it doesn't, they don't have the tool set to go, oh, multicast is a little weird. You can't use just the IP address. You have to use the multicast address. And it's different. It looks 239.0.0. You're like, what?
It's not clear.
I think it's a different way.
That's where it gets them.
Yeah, I agree with what Jamie's saying. I think it's a different way of troubleshooting too, because before, if the all-in-wonder box failed, you started at the all-in-wonder box. Now you're really starting at the endpoints and making sure all of those are set up correctly to figure out what's going on. So as you were saying, it's that web navigation aspect of it.
It is also that, well, we plugged in this extra, we just plugged in one more mic. Oh, well, we just went from 800 megs across this gigabit to 910. And
but
now
think about that as a skill
choking.
set. Think
Now
about that
it's
as a skill
dying.
set, right? That's a whole different like philosophy for a lot of the support staff.
Well, especially I think where we're seeing the challenges for people who, I want to phrase this carefully, people who are good at analog AV, and I don't mean that in the sense where like analog versus digital video. That's
No, I get you.
I mean I plug in a cable and it does a thing. So even in, with HD-based TES being a little different, but for the most part, I'm sending one cable up here and that sends one or two plus some control and whatnot.
On Table Spaghetti, you will
is.
have the same cable at both ends, right?
And this has a thing at the other end that plugs into this thing, and that's it. Whereas now it plugs into the mystery hole in the wall, which goes down to the mystery closet that they don't have keys to. And there's mystery boxes in there with flashy lights, and stuff goes all over the place. Yeah. And we can change where that's going by logging into this web interface and changing some numbers. Everyone understands at the highest level what how IP routing works and setting up subnets and tables, but all of a sudden you're now saying I have devices that look very similar and use the same physical connections, if not the same cables, which I have done. But now troubleshooting that is not quite as simple as I just rebooted it.
Right.
It's a matter of going in and finding out, somebody set up a printer, which somehow the port in the hallway was on our VLAN and blew up a bunch of, things like that, which is completely anathema and new. And so, Justin, to your point about why your support team seemed to pick this up pretty quickly, they'd been unknowingly dealing with this for years on the networking and IP side of things from the IT side. And it's when you have
computer people, right?
They're computer people. That's a good way to put it.
Computer
when
people.
you have the analog AV people with your with the big beards, ponytails, and Sharpies everywhere, they're the ones who, for the most part, seem to be having trouble adapting to this because it is kind of new and scary territory.
And not all of them. It's not all like everybody. It's different, and I think it's different enough to not be able to expect people to be able to just run immediately with it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I would argue that if you were supporting HD-based T properly instead of just rebooting things, your skill set should be somewhat there, like almost
a lot
there.
of weasel words in that statement there.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, you should
and
be
properly and should be.
I don't want to offend anyone.
Too late.
And I think this is that training and support thing too. I mean, how many of you gotten this one? Well, the camera seems to be on, but it's not doing what because it didn't pull the right PoE requirement.
Well, yeah,
right. And because in the network world, certain it's like, it had just enough power to light up the lights and move the motor, but not enough to actually activate the video.
Or you find out it's on, but it's sending its stream to a different location and nothing subscribed to it.
There's another piece of the piece. People that are going to do this migration.
You say it's another piece of the pizza?
A piece of this equation. Let me get it right.
Like pizza.
Sorry. I'll take a piece of pizza. But for those that are going to go down the road and embark down this AV over IP journey, if your current method of support is let me send somebody to the room
to reboot it,
you need to think real hard about how this is going to change the way you provide service.
10 minutes and a tweaker.
Right, because it's gone, right? You're going to go there and guess what? The files are in the computer? What am I doing here? Why am I even on site? Like, what's going on? So it changes
plugged
all
into
of
the
that.
mystery hole.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
You were on site
especially
because
at the rest area.
Wow.
You were on site because you're on a zero trust network and you're treating AV over IP as just another transport.
Yeah.
That's us. That's us right there.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where it is an opportunity for us to be a little more intentional through that migration. It's going to become a little more problematic as we get further down and have to still support legacy. That's where I've experienced itself. I'm like, oh God, I have to go back and deal with this weird tool. Let me see if I even have that installed on my computer anymore.
That is such the truth, because look, my old man worked for telephone his whole career. My brother now works there, and It's amazing how many telephone people in the industry have no idea how POTS works. They have no idea what a POTS network. They have one guy, and it's usually the oldest guy in the city who does POTS. And it was the standard for 100 and some years. So you're correct in that. I've recently come across the same issues where I just didn't get my technicians up to date. I said, I'll just do it tomorrow, Well, I have a new project coming up in a new location with a different technician. I've reversed it. Like I've got to
get buy-in.
I've been telling her from the get-go, do the trainings now. I'll get you testing now. Learn how to use it now. When I put it in, you're an expert. Because what I've found is trying to create experts after the fact is the call Jamie model. Just call Jamie.
Well, I've noticed that the trainings all cool. They both do. I like the Dante. The level 1 just has like a really good primer, just for people that are out there taking score, looking for opportunities. But it resonates differently just blowing through it online versus having stuff in front of you.
Yes,
it's total different outcome. And you will see.
Well, and that's the great thing about trying to learn this stuff using functionally off-the-shelf commodity network switches. They're relatively inexpensive. Go buy 3 or 4 of them and let your team mess with them. You know, that's you're exactly right. Because reading through or watching videos or whatever on how something is set up, oh yeah, that makes sense, cool. And then you go do it 3 months later or a month later or 2 weeks later, and you can't remember exactly what did they click? How did they get to that screen that showed the different feeds? And so having a box there, it makes it useful.
You need the problems to get through, right? Like in a training, it's the perfect world, right? I need you to experience the problem so that when the phone rings, it's not my problem anymore, so that you can own that problem, so you can navigate out of it and know where to go. But saying you've got a credential and went through the thing doesn't necessarily mean you've sat there with a box of stuff, plugged it all in, fumbled through it, found out what not to do, right? Sometimes what not to do is more important than what to do.
Absolutely.
So I think what's interesting here too is since Atkins still with us, and asking Atkins and Justin, I want to ask you guys this. You guys did a whole lot of Zoom rooms. So now that introduces a different kind of service in the digital world. Why? We're talking about the traditional kind of AV service world. You just dumped into a whole nother problem. Have you had these same struggles in trying to get people caught up on how do you even support that crap? Because it's garbage. Sorry.
I mean,
I'm so glad I don't support that garbage.
For us, it's the biggest wake-up call, I think, was the assumption that Zoom rooms were easy by some IT folks just in general. And that we should be doing these because they cost less and they're so much easier to support. And you got this nice dashboard and you can see everything you want. Let's do it. Okay, great. And I was kicking and screaming going, we need to be watching these variables over here. We've all discussed those. And I think the perception now is, this is kind of a headache. So anytime Zoom sends an update, everybody's going, oh my God, what's about to blow up? And they're cringing because they know, because they've experienced why it's not a good idea to do proprietary rooms, but everybody understands the one problem we were trying to solve because we had to automatically schedule these rooms to make it look like ITV, and that's the model we want to keep for our online courses. So it's a battle that we're understanding now was not a great idea, but we have to do anyway. So
I think it's a very good analogy or similarity to the network stuff. So when we deployed Zoom rooms, our group, which is AV, all of a sudden we were responsible for this Zoom room PC. So our desktop support group didn't support that, right? That was like an appliance. So we're supporting that. We're responsible for calendar stuff. We didn't support calendar stuff before. We were responsible for what was the other? Oh, the Zoom application administration. We don't support applications. So we added all these layers to our team that are not core businesses that we're involved in. And we are expected to support them. And the team is kind of like, what the heck? So they'd go out to a trouble call in a Zoom room. And, to your point earlier, check the signal flow. Is it here? Is it here? Yes. It's not working. I don't know what to do.
So something interesting is we had the exact opposite flip on our side. So now that you bring that up, our support team was like, yeah, bring this on. This is right up our wheelhouse. So us, the engineering team, would go integrate it. Support would call us and say, hey, this camera's not working anymore. And guess what our answer was? I don't know. Zoom is a black box to the engineering group. You guys figure that out. That's your baby. And so the table flipped a little bit where we got to say, hey, we can't help you with the computer. Us AV folks, that's y'all's problem.
So when the dashboard triggers, what's your first response? I mean, do you go to Zoom first and try to fix it? Do you go to the room first and try to fix it? Is it triage?
So we have a student help desk, and they sometimes dial into the room from their help desk, and they have a Zoom room set up in their help desk. And so everything support-wise is catered around Zoom rooms.
But when Zoom rooms...
But you guys have catered Zoom rooms?
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Chick-fil-A, Pizza Hut.
But the Zoom room, I mean, I guess it's an application level kind of conversation. When a Zoom room's offline, it's offline. So who are they communicating with the Zoom room in their office?
Well, so you got to remember ITV model. So we have 4 or 5 Zoom rooms communicating with each other on different campuses. So one falls off, we're communicating with the other folks in the call, and then another student is calling the secretary on that campus.
Oh, there's a digital concierge. Okay.
And working unplug this and change this and flip this upside down and maybe it's going to work.
But you would be communicating to the folks that it's working correctly with. The people that are offline are offline.
Correct.
So
because they're jumping in to experience what everybody else is experiencing.
Right. It was like it looks like so and so's not here.
Here's a great example. Hey, we're hearing this buzzing noise. Okay, let me jump in the call and figure out where it's coming from. Hey, Elizabethtown, close your windows. There's a mower outside. Jesus Christ. Exactly. Right? It's that kind of conversation because that was a real support ticket because we had to jump in the call. We had to jump in that call to experience what they were experiencing. They're like, so this is let's back
up like a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
That whole experience you just rattled off. Think about the tool set difference between plugging my HDMI into my switcher.
Oh, I know.
That's different. And obviously, you're apparently grading success in rooms by how many USB adapters you guys have in a system.
Oh, dude, don't even. Yeah, tell me about it.
But to me, like, you just walk through the whole difference and like how you would go about troubleshooting that.
My biggest challenge right now: stop grabbing your tool bag and take your laptop.
I thought you were going to say something different.
Absolutely. Well, stop grabbing that too, but playing grab ask with your tool set, my old saying has always been 10 minutes and a tweaker. I can fix most problems in a classroom in 10 minutes and with just an Extron tweaker. And now, why don't you have a computer?
Yeah, the first time you said that, the tweaker now is the laptop. So our support staff runs
the
around.
Tweaker is the USB adapter to network. That's the new tweaker.
It's your USB NIC.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, I didn't bring that. Well, then what's your plan
what are you
here?
doing here? Hope you have
awesome all these laptops that don't have.
It's like, where's your laptop?
Right.
Well,
where's your laptop?
Bring it.
Why did I buy you one? Use it. And so that's been one of the biggest issues with this transition is to get them to understand that the most important tool now is their laptop.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what we need a Leatherman with a USB and a NIC on it as one of the fold-out things. Like that's somebody get that going. Interns, get on that.
Actually, Gerber makes a field termination tool which looks like a multi-tool, but it's for crimping RJ45s. So you can use that.
Not bad. We need our sponsors. Sponsors, come on.
So back to like the network discussion.
Way to bring us back.
No, because I'm genuinely curious here. So like we're on a converged network. We're not doing a ton of AV over IP, mostly Dante, not a whole lot of video. And so our support ends at the network switch. And we've had lots of
your network switch
one?
or the
any network switch. any network.
What do you mean?
switch.
The moment you get to any
Sounds like
network
all
switch.
of his are on the enterprise network.
They're all
which
on the
is the way
enterprise
it's
network.
supposed
Yes.
to be
Okay.
for
Yeah.
all of you
Yeah, that's
crackpots.
scary though.
And so,
That's
yes,
scary.
we have AV switches in each room, but they're managed by our network team.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh, okay.
so when we're having like Dante issues, for example, you can hop into controller.
Mm-hmm.
You can see your mic. You can see your receiver, and you can see that it's routed. I'm not getting audio, or I'm getting jittery audio, or dropped audio. What does the technician do at that point in that?
They're calling me.
network
They're
environment?
calling me right now. That's what's going on.
So
Yeah, I'm
that's
getting,
the thing.
I'm getting a phone call.
That's the beauty about what we're doing, and it's also terrible. It's got its benefits and consequences. But we're deploying the network switches, and we're doing the configuration on them, so our team knows how to fix those problems. But the negative side of that is everything's a closed system, and we're only able to see certain things remotely, and not everything that we need to. So it's
Yeah, all of our traffic is not going through the enterprise backbone. Control
No.
is, but our traffic is
Yes.
not. It's
Correct.
isolated to the room itself. Our buildings, we have way too many spaces. We would take up all the backplane bandwidth if we did that, and so we cannot do that. So we usually have a lot of extra capacity in our spaces, so we're not seeing a lot of those bandwidth related and traffic related issues that we would see out there. That's a whole other issue. Troubleshooting that, the average technician's probably not going to get into that QoS. They're just not going to be there. So,
yeah, what happened is exactly what you described, Atkins, is we started putting Dante on the network, and when it failed, the enterprise network, when it failed, we said, I don't know, that's network's problem. And we got the ticket, and then we put in a ticket for the networking group, and after those piled up, they said, okay, we're going to stop doing this because we're tired of these tickets. And it's there was times where a single Dante mic took out entire buildings, and it's happened multiple times, and which pushed us
love that multicast.
us doing our own network configs, but it's also a little bit more segmented and not a flat network, if you will.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and I'm not saying that you couldn't, that's not a bad solution to do your own network configs or have your own switch that you manage, but then that's another skill set, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, that would be beyond. I know a little bit about networking. If you're configuring those switches, you have to know a decent amount about networking,
The
right?
$60 ones on Amazon will get you really far. Don't worry about it.
Because there's no configuration on them.
There's nothing.
Right?
Just
But I think that's the path, though, right? I think if we acknowledge that that's where we have to get that skill set.
We've
You need
retooled
that.
ourselves to
Right.
do that. We have to.
You have to, right? And so we have a luxury. Maybe we could say that in our house, we have somebody who's well versed in that, and they do that network switch administration. I will be the first to admit it is replication of services. We are providing something that our NOC team does, but we've had the conversation with NOC. We're not doing it in a shadow world over here on our own. We are working with them, and we're telling them and being completely honest, this is what we're doing, because we haven't gotten to the agreement where we're going to have the correct policies in place on our enterprise network. It is on our work plan, but we're just not there yet. And so we've identified that we can do control all day long. Happy, great, but localized, we're going to have to find a way to get there until we can, more regularly do this where we're not having other kinds of problems. And so it's an ongoing conversation. I think it is a maturity curve, depending on your organization, where you are in your whole ITSM, ITIL model, where you fall into that Gartner hype cycle. You're somewhere in there. And so I think be mindful of that as you move down that path. There's probably some additional skills that we just talked about. So acquire them.
Start going back to school.
I'm curious from the standpoint of networking, just specific to network and network switches. How many of us manage and maintain our own switches?
Me.
Right. Well, we do. So two.
Well, I mean, they manage and maintain a managed network switch in each of our lecterns, racks, whatever.
I do, but it never touches the actual network.
Okay.
It stays within my room.
I have a couple that I pulled off because of I needed mission critical all the time, and I couldn't have some update get them. But 99% of mine are enterprise switches managed by the enterprise.
No,
all
managed by you
things.
is my question.
Yeah, he's asking by
No,
my
I know.
team.
I've got a little of both. That's what my
So here's an interesting piece in that. So this is the question myself and our group here, we've wrestled with this. That managed switch, pick your flavor, your manufacturer of choice, put it in your localized rack. Hell, you can put it in your enterprise rack. I don't care. Devices that are PoE. Right? Our old model is we have an IP controlled outlet. Things hang up, freeze, but bang, on, off, boom, it's back online. I rely upon that managed switch. My tier 1 support staff do not have the credential to get into that switch, where once they did, by way of that IP control, it changes the paradigm how we actually do that service.
That's a conversation we're having too, as to how to best provide that. You know, and they don't like my suggestion. It was the login as admin.
Well, it's weird because now I have.
Chris,
you just gave up all of our passwords, man. Now I have to go change all my passwords.
Spend the weekend changing all those.
Yes. Come on, man.
Damn it.
Just make it capital
Larry, soon
A.
it will be
Don't worry about it.
admin 2. It's now secure.
With a capital M at the end.
Yes.
No, after like the
that
third
M's
time, then you start
capital.
going to leet speak. It's a 4DM1. Like, really? That's what you used for your password, you sons of bitches? No.
But have you, any of you kind of encountered that in your design where it's like you have to intentionally do something that you know you don't need to do just because your support is aligned a specific way?
Or how many of you
hear-
have done that and then said, screw it, I'm just going to reboot the whole damn switch.
But that's what happens.
No.
You get nuclear, bang, right? And the light goes down.
So those few cases where I have that not accessible place, I have a mid-span PoE injector
Yep.
that I hit, and it is annoying as hell because the damn thing gave up the ghost one day, and I had to go find another 24-port mid-span.
the thing you put in there just for support
The
actually
$50
broke.
support widget, exactly.
Yes, and it ruined everything. So,
I don't know, Mark, you raised a good point. Something that was as simple as basically, we're going to turn it off and back on again, and that will work without affecting the rest of the system. Give it 2 or 3 minutes, it'll be back. Now raises these either security questions or how much access are we giving to larger portions of our system that may or may not be good ideas to just keep rebooting those.
Because it's a balance of cost and kind of elegance and simplicity, right? Where if I put it together a certain way, minimalist, and it's really rock solid, but what happens when something needs to be hiccuped or burped? Like what happens then? And who's doing it? What's the level of identity and access they need to the infrastructure to provide that as a service? So it just unravels a lot of these different conversations, and I'm pretty sure the industry has no idea. They just like whatever.
That's why Atkins is here. He's going to tell us how to fix it right now.
Yeah. He's going to write us a letter. Yeah,
with a ladder.
He's going to go home.
Yeah,
write a letter about this show about, hey,
So I was thinking about this recent show I was
discussion.
just on, and I had some comments.
Your guest was terrible.
Yeah.
They're going to take their little pincher fingers and just unplug it from the thing and plug it back in.
Well, I think we use that outlet control as a crutch, right? I mean, how many devices actually need to be power cycled these days? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, yeah, sure.
But
You'd be surprised.
That's
of course,
an
a lot of
SLA.
these were purchased 5 or 7 years ago.
That's a service level agreement we have.
Now
Like,
you're
what's
just
the
turning
fastest
on.
way? Like
Now you're just turning on and off a port on this managed switch.
we know what it
but
takes
how?
to do it, but who should be the one that is doing it is the question I have. It's
If
like
you
if I
don't
give somebody
own the
access,
switch,
right? And so
I submit a ticket.
exactly
networking
that's
That's
why
why you should own your switches.
That's why I go back that it's an agreed upon SLA. Like we know that it's not the right answer to go bang nuclear option, power off, power back on. It goes. We should be a little more intentional, go through, see what's going on. But going through doing the right way is a 4 to 5 minute workflow, which is bang on off is 120 seconds, right? So what's the quickest way to get somebody off that phone?
Switches are you using?
No, I'm just saying going through the web
Yeah.
interface, having student bang through there, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So
If they have access.
if they have access, right? And so it's what's the what's the fastest path to success, right? How do you get there? And unfortunately, a lot of the old world mentality is just power cycle, right? And as wrong as it is.
But you raise a good point. It is a security issue to address. So
Yeah. So we won't get to the bottom of this today. I guarantee you that this is ongoing. But I don't know. Be mindful, I guess, is my words of wisdom.
I'm going to wait for Jamie to build a old arcade cabinet widget that sits behind all the network switches and reaches in and will grab the one port you need and unplug it.
Oh, it's going to be like the grabber claw?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's
that's
the
going to
claw.
be sweet.
Well,
yeah.
And just like the claw, the first 5 times it won't quite get it, and then it'll get the one next door. Like, damn it, got the camera.
So long as you break off all the tabs on the cables first so they come out easily.
They'll be broken up by the time I'm done trying to unplug it.
It would work just fine, except that, as long as you didn't reverse them and plug in 23 into 24 and find out, whoops.
Yeah, it's going to do it.
I plug all my HD-based into the network too. It's fine.
But imagine that call. It's a guy with VR goggles driving the little thingy. Like, it's going to be sweet.
The guy sitting there.
Yeah.
Trying to, hey, that's a legit use for VR. There we go. So we've done VR in education. It's going to be a guy unplugging a cable across the state.
That's
remotely unplugging cables.
Killed it.
All right. I'm going to push a button. We're going to take a break. We'll come back and we're going to talk about some, what the heck are we talking about next?
NAB.
Oh, Jamie's going to fill us in on NAB.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hold on to your butts.
Your support over the last couple of years has been awesome. And now that we're in the 3rd season of AVSF podcasts, we're adding to our repertoire. AVSF Live. Not only will you continue to get our off-the-rails and on-topic podcasts every month, you'll also be able to catch us on video.
Well, I've never let myself be so vulnerable with someone before. It feels amazing.
We are hosting a series of events that will be streamed online, and we're inviting you to join into the show and discuss AV topics face-to-face. Stay connected through our website, avsuperfriends.com, and on Twitter @avsuperfriends to find out when these events will be and how you can join AVSF Live.
All right, Jamie. NAB, what, 3rd largest trade show in the world, something like that?
It was pretty cool. I didn't get to go. I've never
just
been.
happened. There's all sorts of big news came out of it. Massive, earth-shattering, groundbreaking news. What's of interest?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
That was it.
No, although there was there were actually product releases, but some of them were in the engineering space that really doesn't apply to us. And I kept reading a lot of the reviews of NAB was great because there was actually new stuff, except it was broadcast stuff because that's what it's for.
I understand that.
The one thing that I really keyed in on and that's really interesting is that SMPTE 2110 is happening.
Like really happening? Because it's been happening for a couple of years.
It's happening.
Yeah, well, it's been kind of happening, but I think the one that we heard from Panasonic that they're going to start putting it on some of their high-end cameras, and also on as a plug-in card for some of their different devices. And so we're like, okay, well, that's a start, but is that really the whole solution? And they were like, oh, and you can only do that with a couple of things. Like, come on, just
somewhere.
Put it out there. The one that really I think is intriguing is Blackmagic did it. Mm-hmm. And they dropped
3x3 box thing.
Their little converter, $600. You get 3 channels of SMPTE 2110. And Blackmagic has always rolled their own little garbage thing on the side. I mean, nobody ever really used it.
Oh, talking about their power supplies or their streaming?
No,
their little flavor.
They have a video over codec that just it's their own thing. But the fact that Blackmagic said, okay, well, hey, here's your Walmart special. Here's your $600, and you get 3 channels of 2110. Yeah, but let's face it, Blackmagic isn't. We're not talking Grass Valley. We're not talking Ross. We're not talking the big. We're not. Avid didn't come out and say, well, here's your $6,000 single channel SMPTE 2110 card.
Well, I'm sure you can get it.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
But we also saw the announcements from these corporations and direct into NLEs now. You can get 2110 direct into your computer and right into your editing suites and stuff. And these are all starting to become real and not this what if. And so that's really exciting because to me, if we start seeing that on every camera and we start seeing this on professional displays, we now have that standard AV over IP system that we can redeploy. On the flip side, I saw a bunch of comments from engineers because I'm on some engineering groups just lambasting it. They're like, do you know you have to have this network switch infrastructure, this gigantic, this is bandwidth? And we're like, you spend for a 12G SDI chassis that's 32 or 64 or 128 by 128. You already spend $100,000 on this thing, and you're griping because you have to buy a $20,000 switch.
Right.
Give me a break. Quit it.
Yep. These are the guys that are analog troubleshooting, right? And so there we
they already unplugged it. It didn't work. What's going on?
Exactly. That people who do work in broadcast, there's a lot of problem with finding folks that want to work in new, complete digital production environments, trucks and the like, because they just weren't trained that way. They didn't grow up that way. And it's such a massive change so fast, they can't find people to replace it. But going back to the Blackmagic thing, I think there's probably a lot of the industry looking at that and shaking and are probably afraid of that because they made it so affordable, and it's going to be that kind of the race to the bottom, right? Blackmagic, well, whatever. Like, people who listen to this and probably pissed off, Blackmagic, blah, 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 like, doesn't matter. Yeah. It's used. People are using it. Like, and the fact that
I still see that when I mention it to people about
yes.
Blackmagic, they still do like, well, you know.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
$600, I'll buy 2 of them.
If it proliferates enough and you get enough of it out there, it's going to support the fact that the 2110 becomes the de facto standard just because of the depth that'll be out there in the market. And I think
you raise a good point as far as just people snapping them up for it. And you know, Blackmagic design in this particular sense seems to be starting at the other end of the market. If enough people get these out there, if they start showing up in other places, but even if I have, you know, this is the camera I really like, this is the one I've been using for years, it's fantastic. Oh, for $600 I can plug this thing in, and now we're 2110. Interesting,
right? But yeah. It's pretty. You can do a lot with it. That little 3x3. It's you can take it and put it in your baseband infrastructure right now, and all of a sudden open up a whole new paradigm for you.
I think the fact that what it brings with it is the clocking domains and stuff that are missing from some of these other codecs. And I think that's important because that time clock on the network is going. That's really what screws us in a lot of applications. And now this AIMS alliance that says they had some announcements there too, the IPMX and AIMS alliance, whatever they are, that they're going to roll this into theirs stuff as well. If it truly is interoperable, isn't that what we want? A time-synced, time-clocked, truly interoperable AV over IP system that, oh, by the way, incorporates AES 67, which we're all used to using, well, with, quote, Dante.
Some of us.
With Dante flavor.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Instead of playing this stupid corporate game of which Tron is selling which black box that you can't get for 3 years game.
It's down to a year, Jamie.
Q1 2020.
Let's be fair.
You too.
You'll get it. So no, I read the same thing as Jamie. I had kind of the similar takeaway that I think we kind of predicted we would start seeing it, and it was nice to see it.
Yeah, and I think with NAB, a lot of the announcements and things, it's new lenses, new camera infrastructure. There's some things there that are cool to super nerds, but they don't really fit our application very often.
But speaking of IPMX, I mean, do we think that Infocom's going to just be IPMX everywhere, or is it like
no,
one or two things?
That's been the same thing for 4 years, 5 years. Oh, it's got to be IPMX, SDVOE,
like,
it's happening.
What are we going to see? Or is it just more of a
they'll be there,
smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stuff. We'll see stuff.
The same players who get involved in that stuff will have a box that does that one now too, and you know we're not going to see it come. It's come clear, I think. And please disagree if you feel otherwise, but a unified or interoperable IP transport standard is not going to come from the commercial AV world because everyone will just go build their own shit and say, well, our stuff works great with our stuff.
That's kind of what I was thinking is just what is the motivation to do this, right?
There is
Nobody's
no
motivated.
From the AV standpoint, there is zero motivation.
No,
from
not
the
in
production
the
standpoint, there could be larger because the crew's going to bring in their own preferred cameras. They're going to bring in their own truck. They're going to so it makes more sense in that world to say our facility is set up with this sort of infrastructure, so you can roll truck up to it and away you go, and then you can set up your cameras and all the rest. So that one has a little more, and frankly, most of the people driving that industry are part of these massive industry unions and alliances already. So
the broadcast world has to be interoperable. I mean, television reception wouldn't happen without ATSC standards. You know, it has to be there. So they have the most to gain because they need to keep making money, and they can't be privatized individual because they won't make money. So hence AES and SMPTEs and these other groups. That's the beauty of it. And then we just get to piggyback off that and go with it because we use quasi-professional gear.
Maybe sometimes.
But I've been telling Panasonic, and Sony for a long time is they're some of the few corporations that make the camera lens, the camera sensor, the camera, the infrastructure, the displays, and they make it all right there in-house. So why are they playing these games with everybody else? If they just came out and Sony and Panasonic in particular said, that's it, SMPTE 2110 on every device from here on out. If you want to play game with us, play it, because we own everything.
Yeah, I think
problem solved.
Why would commercial AV put a lot of time and resources to engineering something that this other alliance and or set of standards is doing and is going to do it well? It's going to be interoperable and compatible. Like it just seems from a business standpoint to be kind of wasteful, right? And if everything's going to that way where it's network, here it is, I think every commercial AV manufacturer out there is destined to just become a software company.
So, I mean, this Crestron has never leveraged Dante, right? I mean, I can't think of one product.
Yeah, it is.
Have they?
And NDX has Dante all over it.
All over.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make.
You just haven't seen it in a couple of years because
you just haven't been able to touch it.
Well, I haven't seen it.
Well, they announced it, and then it was in the product that will ship next year.
No. The high end encoders, though, the 360, whatever it is, has it on there. Yeah.
Spoiler: just go to the AES67, which is native on all of them. So.
Yes. And then you don't have to pay the license fee.
Yeah.
So, what was their motivation to incorporate AES67 and Dante on that product?
They don't make microphones.
Right.
And they make really terrible DSPs.
Because there's a whole lot of industry that they serve that their primary connector of choice is the Cat5 connector. That's it. So managed switch, one common connector, get you there. So
yeah, I was thinking maybe, I mean, it's probably not a good enough justification, which is why we haven't seen it, but all these, AV companies are very heavily invested in their ecosystems.
Exactly.
They want to be in the ecosystem game, but at some point, I guess the question I have is, will having options outside of your ecosystem that people would buy be better than them not buying anything from you because they use someone else's ecosystem? So would that potentially be a driver for these standards-based things? Well, at least I'm selling something because everyone's buying from the two big companies.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this is, like, I'm seeing a lot more colleges, QSC and Crestron, putting a whole building of classrooms with a single closet. And they're like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm like,
somebody unplugs
wait a couple years, you got a service.
So what? Why? I
don't have keys.
What makes you do that? The only reason that you can do that is because you stick with an ecosystem.
Yeah, but to me, it's value add. I'll stick with the ecosystem if it gives me everything I'm looking for, and I don't have to go somewhere else. But before we even got on this call, we talked about interoperable, like AV over IP endpoints, right?
Right.
In how great that is, the fact that I can pick and choose whatever layer I want and work it with anything you want out, like the visionary solutions option, right? So that there's value in that. I don't have to stay in one ecosystem. I think this migration is going to allow people to do things more a la carte.
And that's kind of where I want to go is.
And I think also as you start seeing some of these standards-based movements, you no longer need Zoom. Because it's time. Look at broadcast. So Mark has the inside scoop. What are they using?
For
Zoom?
vMix.
Oh, vMix. And there's a few more of those that got announced at NAB too. That trend of virtualized production, not even being on-prem at all, that's where it's moving.
Most of the broadcast teams don't even leave their homes.
SRT, SMPTE 2110.
And so now think if you could, instead of using Zoom, and for Justin in our cases, because we both have these situations with the ITV model, what if you didn't have to use Zoom? You just clicked connect, and it's just piped directly to it right from the camera.
Point-to-point stream.
Done.
Yeah.
I don't know if the faculty. I don't know.
It wouldn't change their workflows.
No, don't think about that kind of bullshit. They're
going to blow their mind and they're going to flip out.
No, why would they know?
This is the nerdy. This is the nerdy side of this.
I know it makes sense. Like I agree.
You just click it and it goes. And so now, I don't care if you're running Crestron and I'm running QSC. Doesn't matter to me because it's SMPTE 2110 and they'll talk to each other.
Exactly.
And it just works. NDI, I tried to do this with NDI. It wasn't quite ready yet.
No.
Well, NDI is, but transversing.
I just don't think
networks aren't ready for NDI.
Yeah, it wasn't ready for me to blast across the WAN.
Yeah, I just don't think these companies
really
are ready to implement it. They don't have any motivation to. Because we identified why Crestron implemented Dante and why they implemented AS67, but why they're not implementing any other video.
But that's not off the table.
Yet.
Not as long as they still sell hardware.
Right. That's why I say they're all destined to become the software company that they want to be. But they're making hardware because that's what they had to do historically to serve that segment. Once that need goes away, they can focus on what's the value add of the application experience. They make hardware because
they were electrical engineers who built goofball control systems.
Business will tell us they don't need to do that anymore at a certain point in time.
If the endpoints are all, if all the endpoints they talk to, say, and I'm just throwing SMPTE 2110, if all projectors, all displays, all cameras, and they didn't choose NVX, well, you have two choices. Quit succeeding as a business or allow SMPTE 2110 because all the other places are. That's why I think the big dogs like Panasonic and Sony and these, they could drive this whole discussion. Now, let's see if those engineers out of the Asia market do that.
They could, but like I keep coming back to like when NVX first came out and
before it was DM NVX.
Yeah, the black eye that it got because the initial rollouts were done by people that didn't understand it and it didn't quite go as smoothly as it could. And so they started like reining it in a little bit and controlling it a little bit more. The problem with this solution and getting groups like Crestron and all that to support it is all of a sudden when you call in with a problem, like they have no way of telling, like it's too easy for them to say, this isn't
it's not
us.
our problem.
No, but you
this
just
is your setup.
you made the point again about the training and the skill sets. I think that was more a function of the industry was not ready for it. It worked and it did exactly what it's supposed to do if you did it the right way, had the right tools, and you were skilled as a technician to actually deal with it.
But we know that like 50% of the industry, especially like not higher ed, but just the AV industry in general, doesn't have the skill set.
And I would say it's lower than that.
I would too. I'm being nice right now. I'm just saying that like
being nice.
The technology's there. I don't think the industry's mature enough yet to do this to a point where it's beneficial for the major manufacturers to push this.
I think we will get there, though. I have hope. I think we will.
Remember the issues with matrix switching HDMI?
Right.
Oh yeah,
it's that same thing.
I remember.
Wasn't that awesome?
Oh yeah.
I'm on the fence on this one. I keep flip flopping. Like I don't know.
On the fence, it's gotta hurt.
Yeah. Right on the middle of it.
Especially if you're rocking back and forth.
Flip flopping on it. That's.
Well, anyway, any other things you take away from NAB, Jamie? We could.
No, those are the most. To me, I mean, I had some other interests. Again, some of the really nerdy articles, but I think as far as our industry is concerned, those were the high points from NAB.
I saw some interesting little products. A couple things off the top of my head. I got that new little Yamaha console that was kind of cool. Got announced around that time frame. A couple other of those virtualized work environments were kind of cool. But yeah, it's there's a lot of new stuff out there.
Well, Zoom had a big update. Did y'all see that?
There was an update on that too.
They rebranded as Zoom Out.
Wait, before we go.
Zoom conference?
Yeah.
Oh, Larry's got something to say.
May 21st, AV in the AM. Join us.
That's right. AV in the AM. Take over.
Thank you for the reminder, Larry. Yeah, May 21st, we're taking over AV in the AM.
Wake up early.
Be there on the tweeters. Most of us will be there.
It's early for me. Real early.
It is early. Oh well. Set your alarm clock.
Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.